and welcome to the Think Like a Saver Town Hall, Creative Ways to Save. You'll walk away inspired and motivated, armed with clear strategies to bolster your savings accounts and increase your cash on hand.
Thank you so much for joining us for Creative Ways to Save. You are in for a treat today. Over the next hour, we're going to be joined by guest experts with some incredible tips and ways to save, but save creatively. I am Kia Young, the Director of Communications here at America Saves. And over the past year, as a nation, we've collectively experienced what was at one time unimaginable. There's been a lot of loss of lives, loss of jobs, loss of stability. And at America Saves, it's important to us that you know that our goal is for you to be financially stable. So, yes, we do talk about savings, but we'll never talk about it in a way that undermines or overlooks exactly where you are in life. Our team sits down weekly to discuss the content, the resources, and the communications that we provide to you. And we always center the fact that each and every person is in a different place financially, and that we need to provide you the support in order to be successful. So just know that we work really hard to never forget about the incredibly diverse population that we get the honor to serve here at America Saves. So even in curating our town halls like this one, it was important to us to make sure that you have access to resources that will support your progress toward being more financially stable. So how do we do that? First, with our resources. Believe me, you are going to want to get out your pencil, paper, pen, or if you're like me, open up a Google Doc to take notes that will be shared with you today. Next, everyone watching today has access to free financial coaching and counseling. Thanks to our partners, AFCPE and the Coordinated Assistance Network, you get a complimentary service where you're paired with an accredited financial coach or counselor that's local to you, who will assist you in creating a financial plan based on where you are right now in life with absolutely no judgment and just having a goal of helping you reach your financial goals. Okay, so we'll put a link in the chat so you can see how to sign up for free financial coaching and counseling. Lastly, you have an opportunity to be one of five $500 cash prize winners in our Think Like a Saver sweepstakes. Now, in order to be eligible to win, you have to do three things. The first, make sure that you're registered for today's event. Now, if you're catching us live and you didn't get a chance, so that you can go ahead and get registered, it's not too late. The second thing that you have to do is to make sure that you comment with your top takeaway from today. Any of the tips that really stuck with you, feel free to put those in the comments in the next 24 hours, okay? Third thing to do to be eligible is to make sure that you have taken the America Saves Pledge or Military Saves Pledge in the last 12 months. Now, if you can't remember if it's been the last 12 months since you've taken the pledge, just go ahead and take it again. You cannot take the pledge too much. The pledge itself is just a commitment to yourself to save successfully. And again, you can't do that too often. So we will put the link in the chat for you. If you are military, you'll want to take the Military Saves Pledge. Otherwise, you'll take the America Saves Pledge. Now, speaking of the pledge, let's hear from one of our savers, Kelly, about what happens after you take the America Saves or Military Saves Pledge.
My name is Kelly Lewis. I have two precious daughters. I work from home. I've started a nonprofit to help women in our community fighting breast cancer, getting them practical needs to help them get through their struggle. When COVID-19 started, it was quite scary for me and my family, simply because, the unknowns. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how it was going to impact our finances. I work from home solely, and so having everyone home with me changed how I was able to work, changed the way I was able to concentrate even with work, and that changes the way I make money. Saving is important to me because I need to feel safe in my future. I don't want to have questions about my future. I want to be able to be prepared. When COVID-19 happened, I felt that I needed to look at my savings and make sure I had a nest egg available for me. And I looked at America Saves and started working with that program. I looked at America Saves because I had heard about it from a friend. They suggested it and thought it would be a good starting point for me. The first thing I did was jump on the website, took a look, and took the America Saves Pledge. Once I took the America Saves Pledge, I got an email immediately and text messages confirming that I had taken the pledge. There were suggestions on things I could do, on where I could take my money, how I could start saving, just first steps and beyond. By taking the America Saves Pledge, I'm simply making a commitment to myself to save and prepare for the future. I now have an accountability partner with my finances.
Thank you so much, Kia. I'm excited to get this event started today with you and a lot of our guests. And one thing that we wanted to start off with before we had our first speaker on today is framing for our audience why we call this series Think Like a Saver, because we think that there has been too much saver shaming in the world of saving. And what that means to us is the idea that we're going to make you feel bad about the ways that you spend your money in order to incentivize you to save. And at America Saves, we say, that's not the plan. That's not the voice. That's not what we want to do. So for our savers joining us today, we want you to remember that thinking like a saver means being honest with yourself about your finances, realistic about what your goals are, and having a plan. You can have the latte. You can buy the avocado toast. The important thing is that you accommodate those expenses in your broader plan, and you also have the infrastructure in making those choices to still save some of your money. And the best way to do that is automatically. Automatic savings is always going to be the most effective way to save. So because you know the mechanics of how to save it successfully, we want you to remember the other side of that, which is how you spend. So creative ways to save money involves both different ways to choose an analysis on how you have to spend your money, and it means that you all can be spending your money on ways that may get you money back, that save you money in the long run, or potentially that you're doing things that generate you an extra stream of income. Thanks for joining us today. Joining me today is Mel Hall-Crawford, Director of Energy Programs at Consumer Federation of America. Mel spends most of her time focusing on protecting consumers with energy efficiency standards, but today she's joining us to help share some ways that our savers can save on their energy consumption. Thanks for joining us, Mel.
Oh, thanks for having me, Amelia. Glad to be here.
So, in addition to the environmental or climate impacts of energy use, a lot of people spend a lot of money on energy consumption. So, to get us started, what are some of the free behaviors that people can change that may save them money on their energy use?
Right. There are some no-cost steps they can take. One is to do a full load of wash rather than a half load or a partial load, because you're going to use the same amount of energy, whether it's half full or completely full. The other thing is same with dishes. Do a full load of dishes and then air dry those dishes. There's no need to heat dry them unless, you want to sterilize something, but generally it's pretty standard to go ahead and air dry. One other tip is to close the blinds to keep in the cooler air in the summer, so you're not letting in that warm sun when it really heats up in the summer. And then in the winter, open up those blinds when the sun is shining. That'll save you on your energy bills as well.
I love those tips, Mel. And those are great when we're, yeah.
I forgot, Amelia. So with regards to driving, folks can save money on their gas bills, and they can keep their tires, they should keep their tires inflated to the proper pounds. And so that is indicated on the side of the driver's door. And also they should combine their trips, and instead of going to the bank and then coming home and then going to the grocery store or the library, combine all those trips, and there you'll save money there. And one other way, people exceed the speed limit of, let's say, beyond 65 miles an hour, they're using gas up unnecessarily. So there are some real good ways to save money on the gas bills.
Great. Yeah, because our gas usage is also another way that we're spending money on energy, and we can save too. And I know folks on the East Coast probably would have liked some of those gas saving tips before they had the gas panic a few weeks ago. Yeah. So those are some really simple behavior changes. And then if folks really want to save, what's the next level up? Maybe things that do cost money but are low cost changes that will still help save money on energy use.
Okay, so LED light bulbs, light emitting diode light bulbs, save a lot of energy. And so if people would just change out about 5 per year, they'll save a good deal on their electricity bill, and they won't have to change those light bulbs all that often. It'll be once every 5-7 years at a minimum. So that's also a convenience factor. The other thing that people can do is to install a programmable thermostat if they already have it. They're very reasonable, maybe $50, $60. And what you do with a programmable thermostat is you set it for when you're away from the home for an extended period of time, let's say going to work. You can set the temperature higher in the summer if it's warm, obviously, and then when you think you're going to be home, set it to come on, the air condition to come on about an hour, half hour before you're home, so it's nice and comfortable when you arrive. And the same with the winter months. You can turn the thermostat up when you're home, but when you're going to be gone for extended periods of time, on a regular basis even, you can set that programmable thermostat to really adjust to your habits. And when you're not going to be home, don't waste that energy. But yeah, have it be comfortable when you do arrive home.
That's a great tip, Mel. And one other low cost change that you had mentioned to me was also changing the air filters on our HVAC systems. And I loved that recommendation because you made the excellent point that changing the filter regularly makes the system more efficient, which uses less energy. And then you also pointed out to me that it's doubly good for homeowners because it actually extends the life of the HVAC system. Right. I loved that idea that, both homeowners and renters can save on that change. Yeah, and while we're thinking about our savers at home who are homeowners, in addition to the programmable thermostats, what are some of the big places, maybe some of the bigger cost changes that they can also save a lot of energy?
Well, Amelia, it's when they're buying those big appliances for the home, they should be buying, energy efficient, Energy Star appliances, refrigerator, water heaters, and water heaters consume a lot of energy, and so they're getting more and more efficient. So that's what homeowners can do to just look ahead and save on their big appliance purchases, heating and cooling systems. Those are huge. So that's my big recommendation.
They're big purchases, but they can save you a lot of money if you invest in maybe some of those energy efficient angles.
Another thing homeowners should do is, for the air leaks, they should seal air leaks around windows, doors, a mailbox even, where the internet core wires come through the house. Air comes through all of those spots, so they can use weather stripping. There's the foam. There's other kinds of sealants that can be used to seal up those leaks.
Excellent. Thank you. And then what about for our renters? Are they fresh out of luck if they don't want to replace, for example, their rental home's fridge?
Well, thanks for mentioning that, Amelia, because that's why I do work on standards. It's so that a minimum energy efficiency level is set for appliances. And therefore, when a landlord has to replace a new refrigerator or a clothes washer or dishwasher, they're going to be buying ones that are more efficient thanks to standards that are justified and cost effective. So that's a really good thing for the homeowner. And then the renter, the renter should be looking for Energy Star products as well. Computers, things that, printers, just everyday electronics take up a lot of energy. We're growing in our electronics consumption. So look for the Energy Star.
That's a great tip. Thank you, Mel. And then, I know that there are also some programs out there that our savers can look for in their local communities, whether it's through their own utility company. Some utility companies offer LED bulbs for free or at a reduced price. And some of them also sell at a reduced price those programmable thermostats that you were mentioning.
Right.
What are some of the other programs, and how can folks find those in their local community to see if they might be able to save money on their energy bills?
Okay, so Amelia, there is the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, which is federally funded, and then the money goes to the states. And really, so your savers can go to their Economic Affairs Department or their Social Services Department or Community Services to find out more about the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, as well as the weatherization program, to see if they qualify and can get some help on their energy bills or making their homes more energy efficient.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Mel. Whether our savers want creative ways to save or to lessen their environmental footprint, you've given us some good tips for both. So thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks.
So we've talked about so much already, what it means to think like a saver, and then some really great tangible tips about energy costs. Amelia, what do you say we bring in some of our friends and experts from Forbes Advisor to chat about how to actually put this idea of creatively saving and thinking like a saver into action? Want to introduce us to Taylor and Lisa?
I'd love to. Taylor Tepper is a senior financial analyst at Forbes Advisor and an award-winning journalist who has covered a range of personal finance topics in the New York Times, Newsweek, Fortune, and Money Magazine, Bloomberg, NPR, Wirecutter, and Bankrate. He has offered his expertise on numerous topics on national television and radio broadcasts, as well as for print and digital outlets. He's currently earning his CFP designation at the University of Texas. Welcome, Taylor.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, and we're also joined by Lisa Rowan, a consumer finance expert at Forbes Advisor, and has previously covered personal finance for Lifehacker and The Penny Hoarder. She's also the author of the newly published book, Money Hacks, 275 plus ways to decrease spending, increase savings, and make your money work for you. Lisa has appeared on a variety of news outlets, including Cheddar and Yahoo Finance. Thanks so much for joining us as well, Lisa.
Thanks. I'm really excited to be here.
Thanks for those great introductions. So, coming off of our last segment, one of the things that I loved was the idea that there are behaviors you can change for creative ways to save that really don't cost you any money. So, my first question is for you, Lisa. Other than, do you have any other suggestions around how to save creatively in a way that doesn't cost you like actual money?
Yeah, I think one of the easiest things that you can do is look to the programs that you already use, whether it's your bank account or your utility service or any other thing that you pay every month. They might have a program that makes it easier for you to save, especially with banks and credit unions, even your credit card company. Look at the tools they have. A lot of them offer tools for budgeting, making savings plans, or even automating your savings, which I think we're going to talk about a little bit more. So just take advantage of those free tools. You don't have to figure figure out all the solutions on your own.
I love those suggestions. And Taylor, while people are often thinking of creative ways to save, they're really usually thinking about this in terms of the short term. But we don't want to lose sight of those long-term savings like retirement or buying a home or maybe education. So for balancing, what tips do you have for keeping those long-term goals front of mind when you're working for saving for an emergency or just starting out on building your savings account?
Absolutely. So I think you can do both at the same time. So one really interesting technique, sort of tip, is to think, when you think about sort of saving for retirement, think about this concept of half, right? So instead of, I've written this a lot of people have said this, save 10 to 15% of your savings, of your income for retirement savings. And that, that's a good piece of advice. It sort of makes sense for a lot of people. But it's also sort of incomplete because it can, as you sort of make more money and you get used to making more money and you're spending that money, you're spending 85% of all your raises, you're increasing your lifestyle, right? You're sort of getting used to like nicer stuff, and that's called lifestyle creep, and that sort of hurts you saving in the short term. It also hurts your retirement because when you retire, what you're trying to do is replace the amount of spending you did when you were working. So if you're spending more, that means you have to replace more of that money. So one thing that you can do, that your audience, your lovely audience can do, is save half. So whenever you get a raise, save half of that. Put half of that towards your 401k or towards your 529, which is a college savings vehicle. And then you get to spend the other half. And by doing that, you'll over time increase your savings rate. You'll actually end up saving a lot more money than you would be if you're just doing 10 to 15%. But you'll also sort of lower the growth of your lifestyle creep, and it will make it easier to sort of hit your budgets and do all the wonderful things that Lisa was talking about.
That is honestly the first time I've ever heard of lifestyle creep, but I have experienced it. I've gone through it myself. So thanks for that. I'm going to take that tip for myself. Thanks so much, Taylor. So we had fun crowdsourcing some saver tips from our audience over the last couple of weeks, asking them some ways that they get creative and save around their home. And here is one saver tip that I just love, and I absolutely love the name of it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Nunez, and my tip is called the Kitty. The Kitty is a cash envelope with $200 in it, and that is our fun money. When the $200 are gone during the month, then the fun stops.
That's such a fun tip. I also love the name of the Kitty Fund. So I want to pose this next question to both Lisa and Taylor. What do y'all feel like is the first step to getting creative in how you save?
I can start with this one. I think the most important thing is to know how much you have available to save. And that starts with actually knowing how much you're spending. If you don't have a budget written out, if you don't have a good handle on what your expenses are every month and where you might be able to trim, you'll have no idea of where you'll be able to save. So it starts with making a budget, getting real about your expenses, and also in remembering that your budget may change month to month. You may have to revisit it several times during the year. It's not a set it and forget it thing. And so as your budget may change a little bit, your savings may change over the course of the year too. So you really have to start with those brass tacks of what you have available to work with.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. For me, so I've been, just to be a little personal, like my wife and I have sort of been together since for basically the past like 15 years, right? And we have a lot of things that we have in common. And then we have a lot of things that we don't have in common. And one of those things is money. And so budgeting with a spouse where we all have sort of different ways of thinking about money, and it brings about different triggers and different senses of worth and things like that, has all this sort of baggage to it, right? So that can make budgeting very difficult because it's easy for me to say that you shouldn't spend on this because I think it's frivolous, and it's easy for my wife to say that I shouldn't spend on, sports stuff because she thinks it's frivolous. And so you kind of need to meet in the middle. And I think one good thing to do when it comes to sort of figuring out how you want to save money, because there's a lot of different ways to sort of budget, right? You can sort of rely on your tax refund, or you can be very nitty gritty about it, which is how Lisa was talking about. But when it comes time to sort of figuring out how to spend money and what's available to spend money, I think the first, if you're in a relationship with someone and you're doing this with someone else, I think just sitting down over the course of many conversations and talking about sort of what's important to y'all, what you enjoy spending money on, what's sort of necessary, and what sort of cutbacks you can make to sort of ultimately spend less than you make is a very good way to do it. So as opposed to just sort of, having the same sort of fight every month, just take a little bit of step back and think about the things that are important to you. You can drink some wine, or I've been drinking sidecars this summer, so you can do that, and you can have fun with it, but so it's not too terrible. But just sort of getting on the same page so that you guys are sort of rooting for each other in this sort of long budgeting process.
I really love that. And sometimes when you're sitting down to think about your budget, whether it's with yourself or with a partner, like you may not be able to think of everything at one time. So one of the tools that we have at America Saves for our savers is our spending and savings plan tool that we'll put a link to in the comments. So it covers everything, things that you probably wouldn't think to bring up. So we encourage you to download that spending and savings tool so that you can have those conversations either with yourself or with a partner, so you're not forgetting anything. That comes in quite handy, we've heard from our savers.
Yeah, that spending and savings tool is very popular, and for good reason. Lisa and Taylor, you both know that thinking like a saver is important to us here at America Saves, and I'm sure it is for you as well. But what are some ways that you'd encourage our savers to think like a saver that are not typical or maybe as direct as simply adding money to your savings account or just straight up getting a second job? We'll start with Lisa on this one.
So when it comes to, myself and savings, I really think about how much it comes down to mindset. So it's really easy when you look at your finances to say, okay, this is how much I might be able to save, and I'm going to save every penny of it because I really want to see that growth over time. But if you are going too hard, you're going to stress yourself out. You have to set milestones that are realistic and that aren't going to deprive you of every little bit of joy in your life. If you want to save money on your grocery bill, but you end up eating rice and beans every night, like that's not going to be satisfying at all. And it's not going to be something that's sustainable. So when you're thinking about saving, you really have to think of building those habits over time, building those small steps so that you don't burn yourself out. And remember to reward yourself too when you reach those milestones that you've set, because you deserve a treat every once in a while. Like, I know we joke about treating yourself and how, not everything is an excuse to treat yourself, but there are times when you reach big milestones and you really have earned it.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree that I love treating myself. It's why I wake up in the morning. And I think one concept that I like to think about is sort of money grit, right? And so when people talk about sort of financial literacy, a lot of the times they talk about, do you know what an APR is? Do you know what a savings account is? And these sort of basic things that you can sort of Google and figure out. But they often fail to neglect, or they fail to say or to acknowledge the feeling of control, right? So it's not enough just to sort of know that something exists. It's that you have the control to fix it, that you have the control over your finances to make a better decision to improve your life. So if you have credit card debt, right, which a lot of people have, it's instead of sort of feeling overwhelmed and spiraling and not wanting to look at it and sort of avoiding it, and it's all very unpleasant and you don't want to deal with it, feeling like, I have control over the situation. I can take action. I can look up a credit card that will help me transfer this balance and that will lower my interest rate to zero for a while, and I can pay it off, or I can get a personal loan, or I can cut back on spending for the next 5, 6, 7 months and pay off that bill. I think what people need, one thing that people I like to encourage people to do is to sort of build up their sense of self-worth, their self-efficacy when it comes to money. And one great way to do that is, as Lisa was talking about, is sort of hitting or setting and then hitting manageable goals, right? So being like, I'm going to save X amount of money. And if that is a goal that you can hit, you hit it, you feel good, you feel like you're doing good, you're doing good work in the world, and you're able to do something else that's a little bit better. I'm going to save, I'm going to save $100 this month. And once you do that, you're like, well, next month, I can do $200. It's the same thing as like running. If you want to run a marathon, you got to start with a 5K, So you just sort of, you need to set these sort of goals. And the good thing about setting these goals is not only will you do well, but you'll build up this self-worth when it comes to money, which is a big problem for a lot of people.
Love all of that so much. I mean, it's so aligned with our pledge. Like that's what the basis of the America Save pledge is to help you set that goal and then help you take action toward that goal. And then one of the things that we always say at America Saves is like when you're just starting out with your emergency fund, start with just a goal of $500 in emergency fund instead of that big hanging 3 to 6 months in expenses. And once you get to that $500, you're going to feel so excited about that you've built that savings habit, that savings muscle, you can continue going, right? So exactly what we like to teach our savers here. So really great suggestions, both Lisa and Taylor. Let's hear a couple more savings tips from our savers. They have some really, really great ideas.
Hi, one way I save creatively is setting up a passive savings account for my travels. My bank takes any extra change and moves it into this passive savings account, so I don't have to worry about dipping into my regular savings account when I want to travel.
So an effective way that I've used to save money is to treat my savings like a bill. So at the beginning of the month when I'm going through and I'm paying all the other bills, my mortgage, lights, all the other things that are necessities, I have a set amount every month that I consider a payment to myself or a payment of savings. So treating it like a bill instead of something extraneous, even if that meant other aspects of my month may be tight. Maybe there's not as much free time for a night out or a burger outside of the house. It allowed me to accumulate money to meet some of my personal goals.
Now, let's get into one of my favorite subjects, which is shopping. No surprise there. Are there any thoughts around how to save creatively with shopping? Taylor, tell us some of your best shopping tips.
Well, you'd have to talk to my wife. She's a much better shopper than I am. I think, look, so I'm gonna focus on one thing which I like to do, but only for a little bit of time, and that's sort of like go back a little retro. And if you're feeling sort of out of control, like let's say you came out of Christmas, you came out of, I don't know, the 4th of July or a kid's birthday or something, and you're like, we just spent a lot of money on a bunch of stuff, and where did it all go? And oh my God. So one thing that I like to do is like, so there's, a lot of people used to just use this called the envelope method, right? So you put a certain amount of money in an envelope for groceries, a certain amount of money in an envelope for fun, for food out, for whatever, and then you only spend from those envelopes, and you sort of get creative, and you figure out ways to move from, if you want to spend this money, you have to sort of really ration it out. And I don't think this is something, as Lisa was talking about before, you don't want to, you don't want to sort of get, harm your cut to the bone, and then you have no fun, and it's just awful. But this is a good way to sort of reset yourself, reset your spending, reset your expectations, to be sort of mindful of what you're buying and what you're spending. So by finding creative ways to set limits on what you're able to spend, whether it's like an envelope method, whether it's sort of like a pledge with a friend or a partner or a spouse, where you're like, we're only going to spend X amount of money on this over the next 2 weeks, and sort of sticking to that, those types of sort of little games or exercises can help reset yourself, and you become more present when you're buying things, and you're not just sort of swiping mindlessly. So I think sort of setting sort of creative goals or challenges that sort of do that limit what you're able to do is sort of good for you. And when it comes to shopping, that might be one fun way to get through the pain of not spending as much as you might want to.
I love those suggestions, Taylor. And I think also one thing that I really want to highlight for our savers joining us today is that we have a very strict, what we call no saver shaming philosophy here. And so the idea, I love that we're even talking about shopping in the context of creative ways to save, because our message isn't never have any fun or never buy anything that you like. And, you know, we know that we want to be encouraging people to still have joy and create joy for themselves. It's just within reason. And so the envelope message is a great example. And, you know, too, I know a lot of our savers have hit in their saver tips on the importance of like buying at stores with strong product guarantees so that you know that what you're buying is going to last, especially if you're spending a lot of money on it. And if it doesn't last, that you have some kind of backup. Let's listen to one of those saver tips now.
Hey everyone, my creative tip to save money is to take advantage of point systems, any kind of company that you frequent or anything that you're really interested in that you do often. See if they have a point system. Personally, I'm a big backpacker and hiker, so I enrolled in REI's dividends. REI also enrolled in Marriott's Bonvoy program because I like to travel, and I paid for a whole trip just on points. So I would say look to things that you like and see if you can get points.
Such a great tip. Okay, so I'm going to put on my professional hat here and just add a small disclaimer that we don't personally endorse shopping at any particular store, but there are several that have those really strong warranties or guarantees, like the saver tip that we just heard. So buying good quality pieces is definitely one way that you can think like a saver and save long term, because you don't have to replace them as often. Or you don't have those out-of-pocket expenses if they just replace a product that you've already purchased. So, Lisa, any other thoughts around savings when it comes to, particularly around shopping?
One of the things that I like to remember when I'm shopping is that there are a lot of tricks out there that stores use to make you think that you're saving. When you see a buy one, get one half off offer, or when you hear that if you spend a certain amount, you'll either get free shipping or a free gift, or if you spend this amount, you'll get a discount. You know, those can be great in certain circumstances, depending on what your needs are. But when you start trying to achieve that, you know, spending threshold or that amount threshold to be able to get, you know, sort of like that good, like gratuitous prize when you're shopping, that's not going to help you save. A lot of times it just convinces you to spend more. So you have to really be watching out when you're shopping and when you're looking for the right deal for you, because it may mean ignoring those coupons that require you to spend more. It may mean, you know, ignoring some of those deals that they're going to ask you about at the register, like, oh, did you see it's buy one, get one half off? And you'll be able to confidently say, oh, no, that's not for me, but thank you. Like, I don't need 2 pairs of denim jorts. Like, I'm good. So, you know, being confident to make those decisions, like sometimes it requires doing a little bit of mental math when you're there in the store to figure out if you really need to get that extra thing or spend that extra money. But you should always be looking for those tricks that are trying to get you to spend more.
Those are great tips, Lisa. And that actually really segues nicely into this saver tip. It's in the same vein of not being tricked into thinking that you need something because you want.
Hi, my name's Sherry. This tip goes out to everyone, but particularly my fellow impulse shoppers and shopaholics. So whenever I'm on my favorite website, let's say Amazon, and I'm about to make an impulsive purchase, what I do is I take the item that I'm looking at and I add it to my wish list. Then I wait at least 3 business days before making that purchase. The reason I say at least 3 business days is because that gives me time to, 1, forget if I don't really need the item, 2, determine if I really do need the item, and then 3, make sure it fits in with my budget so I can make the purchase.
And now that we have these behavior tips for saving, another thing that I want us to talk about is comparison shopping, because a lot of people think, like, I think the ground level entry into thinking like a saver, a lot of people think is comparison shopping, just buying the, you know, bottom barrel, cheapest thing you can possibly find. But there's actually a lot of components to this. Comparison shopping can involve comparing prices. So maybe if you have an appliance or a large purchase that is available at a lot of different places, maybe it is shopping between those places to find which one offers it the cheapest or has a sale running, or maybe you have rewards or something. But there's also a way of comparison shopping, which involves a little bit of research, but is shopping for the most reliable, because our appliances and electronics are oftentimes big purchases now. And so when we want to be buying something that we're spending a lot of money on, spending something on it for reliability seems worth it. So shopping for the longest lasting. And then of course the combination of these things is what a lot of aggregators or third parties who assess these two things call best value, right? So it's that intersection of, it maybe isn't the cheapest one, but maybe it's the best intersection of least expensive plus highest reliability. So just putting this all in context, when it comes to creative saving and thinking like a saver, it doesn't just mean buying the cheapest thing. It can also mean buying the most long lasting or the best quality. And when we're talking about the reliability of products, Taylor, I want to talk a little bit about warranty and insurance on products specifically. So sometimes paying extra for something that comes with a warranty or paying extra for an insurance on an item is worth it, but oftentimes it's not. So can you help us understand, when is it worth it to pay that little bit of extra, and when is it not? And what analysis should we be doing there?
Yeah, so I think when it comes time to that, I'm very skeptical of sort of extended warranties or anything, or insurance or things like that when it comes to sort of products that over the long haul. Generally, like most academic research shows that you end up paying more than you would if you had to replace it. Like I'm thinking like for your cell phone or for a big appliance. The amount of monthly premium that you paid, you would have actually just been better off buying something new, because it doesn't tend to break as often as you might think. And we have these sort of notions in our head that this expensive thing is going to break pretty quickly. When it comes, other stuff I think does make a little bit of sense when it comes to, like, if you think about travel, for instance, right? So under certain circumstances, I think it makes sense to do a big travel, to buy travel insurance. So I wouldn't think about travel insurance in most cases. If it's just you traveling, or you and a friend or a spouse or whatever, and it's a trip that's sort of short, not that expensive. You buy it with your credit card. That tends to come with some protections. But if you're doing a big family trip that costs a lot of money, and it sort of involves a lot of different people and a bunch of logistics, and you're getting to a place at a time, and something really bad happens, like COVID, or grandma gets sick and she can't come now, or like little Timmy breaks his arm, and you have to call the whole thing off. That you're gonna have a harder time getting covered for with your credit cards. So when it comes to something that's precious, that's only going to happen once or twice, like these sort of big family trips or something like that, once in a lifetime trips. Think about getting travel insurance that sort of protects you no matter what happens, and will give you some high percentage of the value that you paid, give you that back to you if something bad happens. And it's never really fun to pay that out, but when it comes time to those big sort of precious things, I think it's worthwhile.
Such great tips. And that really reminds me of like how we don't always think about those things. And at America Saves, we define a good saver as an empowered and informed saver. And so by implementing a lot of these tips that you guys have given us, they'll definitely be both empowered and informed. Do you guys have any last thoughts around shopping and tips around shopping and creative ways to save?
Yeah, I got one for you. I think one thing that people have, this is true of retirement, this is true of anything. People have a sort of a hard time projecting out, right, what their needs are going to be. So, for instance, we're talking about buying a big expensive, or like a car, right? So people are owning cars for longer now, and maybe they're like, well, they're comparison shopping like you're talking before, and I want to get a cheaper car. I don't need this bigger car, this third row SUV. I don't need all this stuff. But 10 years ago, I didn't have any children, and in a year, I'm gonna have my third kid, and we're gonna need a bigger car. And so life sort of changes more quickly than you think. And so when it comes time to sort of buying stuff like that, like you're talking about before, it's not just about value. It's not just about your needs right now, but it's also about what are your needs going to be in the near future, and sort of being imaginative about how your life might change over the next 5 to 10 years.
I think another thing that I would add into that is when you're thinking about spending on some of those pricey things, like maybe baby supplies for Taylor, is shop secondhand when you can. There are a lot of opportunities now to buy items that are like truly gently used. A lot of times you can get something that is of a higher quality than you might be prepared to pay for otherwise if you were buying it new. So, whether it comes to furniture for your apartment or, a high chair for the baby, or, we think that buying used cars is totally normal. So why not other items that are used, that are still of high quality, still have a lot of life in them, and offer a lot of savings? So it's easier than ever to buy secondhand items between online and in person. So definitely take advantage of that if you can.
Buy the used snoo for all those bassinet fans.
Gosh, they're so expensive. The snoo, I can't believe it.
We saved it
so quickly. I have no idea what a snoo is. All my kids are older, so
yes.
Like the Rolls Royce of baby cribs.
Really? Okay. I'm so glad that is no longer my life, but more power to you. Definitely buy secondhand. It's better for the environment and better for expensive taste as well. So really great points. And actually buying secondhand is a great segue into another way to get creative and save, and that's to actually add a stream of income to your household. So I feel like this is a caveat to saving that many people don't typically think about first, right? But as the gig economy grows, we really just can't overlook it. When I was growing up, if things got tight around the house, Dad would pick up extra shifts or get a part-time job. And it's really the same concept, just using different avenues. And those avenues are a lot more flexible than they used to be. Wouldn't you say, Taylor, what do you think about the gig economy and adding a stream of income?
I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think obviously the gig economy is popular with people because it's so easy to sort of get into it. You sort of just need a smartphone and a car, for instance, for Uber. And I guess not a criminal record, but maybe so. Anyway, but more broadly, I would think about that in terms of your own career, right? So one of the sort of troubling aspects that happens is that you sort of you begin your career, you develop, you gain more expertise, you're smarter, you become more expensive, and then eventually when people are trying to cut costs as you're older, they are sort of more likely to sort of look at you than younger people, which is sort of an unfortunate development in our culture, in our country. But by sort of freelancing, by using your skills to develop, to sort of do things on the side when you can, helps you not only sort of bring in extra money, but it also sort of enlivens an entrepreneurial spirit in you, and it gives you sort of a sense that if things do change in your employment, that you could sort of go off on your own for a little bit. You can pick up a few more clients. You can transition into the sort of new career based on what you were doing. So I think just have a little bit of flexibility when it comes to that kind of thing. Not only will you get more money, but it will help you it's sort of a hedge against your employer trying to cut costs eventually.
Yeah, it's a bleak but important tip, Taylor. Thank you. And
sorry to bring down the
mood. We're thinking about well, it's important to expand our skill set, and also the job prospects are changing so rapidly as well, right?
Absolutely.
So Lisa, what are some other ideas for generating extra income?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to the skills that you have, right? So if you're someone who, loves to shop, as we were talking about, maybe you have items at home that you can consign or sell. Provide some of those goods secondhand to people who are looking for a bargain. It's great for decluttering and it's great for putting a little extra cash in your wallet. You might be able to pick up a side gig that is just a couple of hours a week and tags onto a skill you already have. Maybe you can do some tutoring, teach some music lessons to kids, something that doesn't take a lot of time for you to get up to speed doing it. And another thing I recommend is looking at seasonal jobs, especially right now in the summer. There are a lot of locations, a lot of attractions that are looking for people to work maybe part time because they're still sort of building up their staffs again after the pandemic. And when you're thinking about earning more income, you don't have to think about side income as something that you have to earn every single day for the rest of your life. It can come in seasons. You can do it for part of the year. You can say, okay, maybe my summers are going to be really busy and then I get to rest in the winter and enjoy, reap what I sow sort of mentality. So definitely think about that and what your strategy is for making more money and how often you want to be earning and how much. I'm sure Taylor might have a couple of other tips about, picking up a side gig or ways to earn extra money, but that's where my head goes first.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense to me. It's sort of built, and also sort of building within your network. It's easiest to look around to see what your friends are doing, see what your coworkers are doing, what past coworkers are doing, see what people need, check in with them, see if they need extra work, if they need extra help. The easiest lift is sort of going with people who know, who can vouch for you, and go from there.
The gig economy is more than just, as we said, driving Lyft. It could be there are mystery shopping opportunities in stores. Sometimes folks can take surveys or participate in focus groups at a university or with a local business. But one place that I personally love to find extra money is with credit card rewards. I'm big into credit card rewards. So I have a rule for myself, which is I never use a rewards card that I have to pay for. This is a very controversial stance in credit card rewards world. What are your thoughts? And also for our folks at home who aren't, what are the ways in which you can find free money through credit card rewards?
Sure. Yeah, you're gonna get some nasty comments from the points bloggers. But look, so basically there are two types of credit cards. There's cashback credit cards, there are travel credit cards. Those are the two main rewards cards. When it comes to cashback cards, you're going to get no annual fee credit cards, right? So you're going to get ones that give you 2% back on everything you buy and you don't have to pay an annual fee. And that's, like you're saying, free money. And that's an easy way just to make, about $500 a year, basically, if you're spending about $2,000 a month. So that's a really good way to do that. So that's just sort of an extra every month you get a little bit of money. It makes things go a little easier. You feel good. It goes right into your bank account. When it comes time to travel, it's more difficult to get the really good cards that don't have an annual fee. For this, go back to our conversation before about buying for value versus buying for cheapest. If you're someone who travels and wants to sort of get rewards when you travel, it will make sense to buy a card, to apply for a card that has an annual fee. Which card sort of depends on you and your shopping and your traveling behavior. But you can get a good card that costs $95 a year, and you get one checked bag for free. So for a lot of people, that pays for itself just there. You get once you spend a certain amount of money, you get a sign-up bonus that will basically be the cost of one round trip ticket, generally speaking. And then there are some other benefits that come with it when you actually spend the card and you build up points and rewards. My wife and I have we basically concentrate our spending on two cards. And by doing that, we've built up a whole bunch of points. One of them card has an annual fee and one doesn't. But we've built a bunch of points that we can use between those two cards. And by doing that, we've thought about it in terms of this is a savings account for travel, right? So whenever we want to book a flight, whenever we want to rent a car, to book a hotel, we draw down from that account before we actually spend our cash. And that's what it's there for. And so that's sort of one technique that we've used. A lot of people sort of churn through credit cards and get like the sign up and earn the sign up bonus before the annual fee comes in and they cancel the sign-up bonus, and that has all kinds of effects and consequences. But the broad strokes for your viewers is that if you can get a really good cashback card without an annual fee, but you're going to have to pay, generally speaking, some amount of money for a good travel card that has all the perks that you want.
Well, I think you raised some really good points there too, Taylor, which is, again, everything that we're recommending goes back to what's right for you, for our savers at home, right? Like what, if the envelope method works for one person versus the treating your saving like a bill works for another, it's knowing yourself and working within yourself. And also, as Lisa pointed out, not denying yourself joy. And so for some people, they may truly concentrate their spending so much at one store that getting an incredible cashback rate there would be worth it. But it always goes back to knowing yourself, knowing your habits, and knowing how much money you're really spending. And when we're talking about spending and saving, it's impossible not to talk about couponing. One thing that we wanted to raise for folks, because most folks know about clipping coupons, out of the paper, or now basically getting them from an app or email or texted to you, is there's also online couponing, and that involves spending trackers. We wanted to put this on everybody's radar as a way to sometimes earn extra money. And then we also wanted to raise two flags with it. One, there are tremendous privacy concerns with these online trackers that folks should absolutely enter into clear-eyed. And second of all, we should probably also balance that against some information that there aren't very strong privacy protections, generally speaking, online for folks. So it's a balance. Again, it's about what you're comfortable with, what you're willing to compromise on. But knowing that there are new forms of coupon that aren't kind of what you saw your parent or grandparent doing growing up, not just having a binder with paper coupons. We're not going to dive deep down into couponing, but I think that that's kind of where we are in the 21st century, using apps, using email, using text to also get those deals and to take advantage of coupons at stores and on products.
Couponing in the 21st century. That's what I was going to say. So Taylor, Lisa, Amelia, my mind is spinning with so many ideas. Even I can get a little bit more creative with how I save. So I'm excited to put some of these into action, sure that our savers have a lot of takeaways from today. And one of the things that I'm thinking of just creatively for myself since the pandemic is cutting down on all of my DoorDash fees that have plagued me. So just one last time, any last thoughts around ways to save creatively, if any?
I think my last thought would be just to trust your gut. There are a lot of tips out there, and there are a lot of different strategies when it comes to saving and spending wisely, and they're not all going to work for you. So keep an open mind, try a bunch of different tips out. You don't have to do it all at once. You can pick up different strategies over time. Remember, this is a marathon. You can save your whole life, not just today. And, keep an open mind when you're seeing a new tip or a new strategy. Give it a shot. And if it doesn't work for you, just be confident that you're going to find the right combination of things that do work for you.
We've talked a lot, at least I've talked a lot about macro stuff, but I think if we're talking about one sort of tangible thing that you can sort of get your hands on. So one thing that we've been doing is, I a while ago I bought this espresso machine, right, to buy in quality, and I've always made myself espresso. I love espresso, right? I know I'm getting into coffee with personal finance. This is terrible. This is fraught territory. But my wife loves this sort of latte that Starbucks makes, right? And so we've been doing that with her, and it's been great. And it never really dawned, this is pretty stupid of me, it never really dawned on me that I could make that drink for her here, right? And so that basically, ever since about a month ago, you looked up, she likes this one, one specific type of latte. We looked up the recipe, we have all the ingredients, it doesn't take very long, and I sort of make it for her in the morning, and it's great. So she gets the exact coffee that she wants. We're saving $5 every day or whatever it is. And it's, brownie points for me as a husband. And so I think it's win-win-win. So little things that you can do to save money that also redound to your position in your marriage or your relationships is an added bonus, I think.
God, ladies, get you a
Taylor,
man like Taylor Tepper.
This is what it's
yes,
you have to do. It's
Seriously.
marriage is about marriage is about the high ground. Marriage is about the high ground.
yeah,
So that's my
I love that.
advice.
I think I heard you say that that recipe has oat milk, which I adore. So I'm expecting a recipe in my inbox after we're done here, Taylor. But thank you all so much. This has been so enlightening. We always love having you guys here. You always give such great advice. Now we're going to invite our friend Rebecca Wiggins, the executive director at AFCPE, to remind our savers of a very important benefit that you get by being a part of today's town hall.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca Wiggins, Executive Director for the Association for Financial Counseling and Planning Education. We are delighted to sponsor today's virtual town hall event and really thrilled to work in partnership with America Saves and the Coordinated Assistance Network to offer free one-on-one financial counseling and coaching to anyone who wants it. At AFCPE, we believe in a future where all people, regardless of your income level or your background, are empowered to achieve lasting financial well-being through the highest standards of financial counseling, coaching, and education. So to all the savers who are tuning in today to learn about creative ways to save, simply click on the link in the chat. You'll fill out a brief survey to provide us with some information that helps us match you with an accredited financial counselor. There's absolutely no cost to you, thanks to the generous support of Wells Fargo, and your session will be completely tailored to your questions and needs and goals. So we hope you'll take advantage of this incredible opportunity.
So I am back with the amazing Lisa Rowan from Forbes Advisor. Lisa, thanks for joining me again. And we really just want to kind of put everything into perspective for our savers before we end today. It's been really cool hearing and seeing all of the tips and seeing their biggest takeaways in the comments and the chat on social media. And now we have all of these ideas, right? And I don't know if you've ever been to, I'm sure you've been to like conferences or retreats or a workshop like this, and you get all of these ideas and then it's over and you're like, okay, what do I do? So with having so many great ideas for creative ways to save, let's talk about specifically what happens when this town hall is over. What should we do first?
First thing you do is take a breath and just let everything sink in and keep in mind that, like I said before, this is a marathon. You're going to have to do spending and saving your whole life, so you don't have to tackle it all. You don't have to tackle everything in one day. This is baby steps toward a bigger goal. And remember that, you never win the prize at the end of saving. It's not like playing Candyland where you're at the top of the board and, you've got it made. Budgeting and saving are things that you are going to revisit over and over. And this is about habits, not about achieving some mystical prize. So you have to give yourself a lot of grace because you are going to make mistakes along the way. But over time, if you can get yourself, pretty much on that path to success, you're going to start seeing your wins along the way. And that's going to help motivate you. So don't get overwhelmed. This is all like just one day at a time.
Absolutely. And it's about like establishing a good foundation, right, of savings. Like we were talking about
Yes.
savings being a habit and building that muscle. So how do you establish that foundation for those that are just starting out savings and hearing all this different advice from different places? Like, how do you establish a really great foundation in savings?
Yeah, you really have to go back to the basics. You have to think about what's important to you in terms of spending, in terms of your goals for your life, not just financially, but beyond your finances. What's important to you? What do you want to be able to do, when you're 30, 40, 50, 60? Thinking through some of those scenarios are going to help you find out, why you're doing all of this work. So go back to your foundation. Think about your spending, your habits, what your little triggers are when you're out shopping, and think about your big reasons for saving. And going back to that is really going to help you put some of the strategies into action so that you can start seeing a difference in your finances.
I love that. And we talked earlier about like getting that clear view of your finances, looking how you spend, look at how you save. And so I think, one of the first steps is really just understanding your income, your expenses, and seeing what you actually have to work with, right? Once you're able to see, this is what I have coming in, this is what I have going out. Then what? What comes next once you understand your finances and where you are?
Yeah, once you know what you're actually working with, like really getting down to like the different cells in the spreadsheet, or you've got like the back of the envelope math that you've been going over and over, then you can start to think about, what you want to do with what you have. You don't have to triple or quadruple your income to be able to make changes in your finances, to be able to improve your money management. You definitely can work with what you have. Think of short-term and long-term goals so that you don't get stuck in the mud too much. We talked a little bit earlier about, if you don't celebrate milestones, this is not going to be a sustainable journey for you. So definitely be thinking about a combination of short-term and long-term saving goals so that you can enjoy the hard work that you're doing.
Right. If we get caught up in just those short terms, we're going to turn around and it's going to be time to retire. And while we've done great with like having an emergency fund, we're a little short on retirement. So it is important to do both at the same time. So it sounds like, that we kind of got our what and our why, right? We know the what, which is what we're working with as far as our finances, and we know our why. Now we know what goals we have for savings and what we're actually saving for. And then it's just a matter of determining how to actually go about it. So, what tips do you have for us when it's time to determine how?
Yeah, that's when it's time to get creative, right? With all these great tips that we had today from some of our viewers. And, keep in mind that you're not going to be creative during every day of this. Sometimes you're going to be able to go on autopilot, and that's great. You're going to have a system that works for you, but things are going to change. Your income's going to change. Your living situation is going to change. And that's when it's really important to get creative and have a really honest look at your finances. Look at those places that you can cut expenses and look at those places where you can increase your savings. Not because you feel guilted into doing it, but because you want to ensure your comfort and ensure your success down the road. So, you will find times when you will catch a wind during your life and you're like, oh, it's time to shake things up. I'm going to take on a side hustle. I'm going to, sell my couch. Whatever it is that sort of, lights a fire under you and motivates you to make some good financial changes. So don't be afraid to get creative. What's the harm? Nothing bad can come of it.
I literally have a child that's going off to college, so I've been having to get creative in my own way. So those life milestones actually also cause you to have to get creative in how you save and how you spend as well. So, Lisa, my friend, it is always a pleasure talking with you. You break down things in a way that's so easy to understand. We always love having you on our town hall. So, thank you so much for being with us and kind of giving us this last bit of perspective of what to do when we leave here today.
And thanks so much. It's always so great to be here, and I'm really excited to find out what your savers do with all these tips. So, good luck, everybody. Have fun with it.
Thanks, Lisa. Now for our savers. Just like Lisa, we can't thank you enough for being here with us today. Don't forget, in order to be eligible to win one of our five $500 cash prizes in our Think Like a Saver sweepstakes, make sure that you are officially registered for this event. In case you just happen to catch us live, we're going to place the link for registration in the comments. Also, make sure that you have taken the America Saves Pledge or the Military Saves Pledge within the last 12 months. Very easy to do. If you don't remember if you've taken it in the last 12 months, just take it. There's no harm in repledging toward new savings goals, right? And lastly, make sure that you leave us your top takeaway from today's event within the next 24 hours, either here on YouTube or on Facebook, okay? Again, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day and stay tuned to hear about our next town hall in July that's all about homeownership. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you for joining our Think Like a Saver Town Hall, Creative Ways to Save. Mark your calendars for July 22nd, our next Think Like a Saver Town Hall, Buying Your First Home.